Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. I want to welcome you to Life Hacks with Mac. And this afternoon, I'm really excited because I'm interviewing somebody who has a wealth of knowledge, both in the business world, but health and nutrition as well. Sonya Morton Firth, who has recently also, about a year ago, started her own show and brings massive value. So I'll definitely say, go out and check out her show and go and see some of the phenomenal interviews she has done. But today we're going to be talking about her health and nutrition value that she brings to the world. And, Sonya has been working as a high-flying sales executive in the city for many years, traveling all over the world, but between New York, Miami, London. So a bit of a jet setter. And at the same time,
I can do that
now. If only any of us could do that openly now without being trapped for 14 days. And you've been in the corporate lifestyle and then converted kind of was it at the age of 40 you decided to make a massive change in your life?
That's right. It was like a cliche, man. Life begins at 40, and I closed one door closed and another chapter opened. But yeah, very pivotal point for me. And
I mean, you've gone on and qualified in both fitness and nutrition, and your pursuit for well-being and personal development has been kind of just continuous over the last 10 years now. And you've done some crazy things, from having a brand of glamorous fitness wear to doing bikini modeling and bodybuilding. Is that right?
Well, it's a bikini athlete. So basically, yeah, I competed in physique competitions. And my area was they call it bikini. It's if you think of boxing, it's like the featherweight of boxing. So I wasn't getting up with the big bodybuilders. My category was called bikini. So it's like the featherweight of boxing.
But in your 40s to go and take on that, when most people, I guess, would have more, what's the word? They'd be a little bit more sensitive about, and I guess as we grow older, we tend to have more restrictions on our thinking because we have these learned fears of, stepping out and exposing ourselves in different environments. And you've gone and put yourself into new arenas and challenged yourself massively over the last 10 years, where most people tend to become a little bit more reserved, at that part of life. So that's not a thing.
Life is for living. No, absolutely, Matt. You know what? I've actually turned completely the other way. I've gone, I've really come into myself. And actually, I think I know myself more now than I ever did in my 30s, my 20s, and certainly in my teenage years. Life just gets better, with every year, and next year it's going to be my big 5-0. And it's just like, I'm excited for the next 50 years of my life. And many years ago, we wouldn't be saying that. People's life expectancy wasn't 100, and now they're even saying 120 is the latest figure. So to sit here and say, wow, I'm going to be 50 next year and I can't wait for the next 50 years. It's,
I mean, that's quite a statement.
It is. But, going back to what you said and what I'm sure what we're going to talk about, it actually all does revolve around health and fitness, because without that, your next 50 years, because we are getting older, we're going against the biological clock, could be more difficult. And obviously that's mindset absolutely plays a huge part in that. And it's your health and well-being. And
I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this, because you've just, you've hit a little bit of an interesting nerve there, because for me, I've always had that fear of, I don't want to grow old being an old, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I know so many people that, yesterday I almost ran over one of my neighbors. And basically what was happening is I was edging forward to go into the road, and this man darted out of nowhere. And I was like, what the heck? And my neighbor, just to give you a little bit of context, he's in his 90s.
Oh,
and
wow.
He was going for a run, and there was no way I would be able to even keep up with the pace that he was doing. And I was like, where did he just come from? And, you know, what you just mentioned now, for me, the biggest challenge I have, and some of the questions I'm going to go into today, because it's around, you know, one of the things that kind of started this was our teenagers and the challenges they're having with social media and the myths that they're following, but the dangers that that has on the future. And for me, the part that kind of gave me a bit of goosebumps there right now was when you spoke about the next 50 years, those teenage years are the most important ones that are going to set you up for that. But if you damage yourself so early, then...
It's like a foundation. It's like a foundation of a house, right? Before you build a house, you don't just put the bricks up and boom, 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 boom. You have to make a sturdy foundation. It's like trees. Trees have roots. They go down into the ground. They don't just suddenly pop up. You know, you do absolutely have to have a strong foundation, and your teenage years are incredibly important for so many different things in life, but they're also I would say one of the more formative. You're going through the most change in your life. Your body's changing. You don't really know who you are. And there are so many things that are being thrown at you, including everything your parents say, everything society says, everything social media says. What are you to believe? So they're incredibly formative years. Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's quite interesting that we're having this conversation today, because yesterday in the news, even our Prime Minister has now got a personal trainer, because he's realized that the reason he ended up in hospital because of the COVID situation was because of his health and being not in the right shape. And that made him more prone to illness. And that's not just COVID, that's just any illness.
So I mean, being fit and healthy, I mean, it helps you in so many different areas. And one of the main areas for me is mentally as well. I mean, it can help you with all sorts of things in your day, your work, your determination, your mental strength, helping with stress, relieving stress, as well as the aesthetic things, as well as looking good and all the rest of those lovely things. But in terms of body, I mean, you know, as we get older, we start losing muscle, we start losing a lot of these things. So, you know, being fit and healthy in the early years can go on and prevent certain diseases and things as we get older, such as osteoporosis, muscle mass degeneration, and all those things that your 90-year-old doesn't look like he's been through those things. You know, if you've got another 50 years at the age of 50, you want to make sure that you're fit, healthy and strong and able to sort of pick yourself up if you fall over. I mean, of course, we're not going to be the same as when we were young, but actually that's in the mind, you know.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I put in one of my posts and on the subject was, you know, this constant, people are constantly searching for the next quick diet and the next quick fad to lose weight. And, you know, I couldn't believe that there were over 76 million searches on YouTube for how to lose weight fast. And it's like, no, you know, the question isn't asked, how do I maintain weight? How do I look after my health? It's how do I lose weight fast? And one of the things, there's an organization called CAMS that works with mental health and teenagers specifically. But some of the things that they cover were the fact that, you know, teenagers today are constantly worrying about the food that they eat, the number of calories they take in, the weight they gain, the shape of their body, and, you know, all these things impacting their lives, and trying out all these crazy things that social media recommend. I mean, I didn't realize that there was things like you know, eating disorder groups that, you know, teenagers would just hang around in, or 0-calorie diets. I mean,
which is insane. I mean, that is absolutely, to say a 0-calorie diet, I mean, you might as well be saying you're dead. You know, if you do not consume calories, if you do not take in oxygen, if you do not drink water, sooner or later you will not be able, you won't survive, you will perish. And how that is linked with the sort of the health and fitness industry just astounds me, because it's anything but healthy to encourage that sort of zero calories. Now I'm not saying, I mean, just to sort of take you back on my path. You know,
I was just going to ask.
Well, I very much understand teenage, and I'm going to say teenage girls because obviously I'm a girl. You know, and what I went through, and if I think about what I went through when I was young, and I think this is probably why I can talk the talk, and it is all about, you know, you've got to be able to walk the walk, not just talk it. And trust me, I have been, and I've been that teenager, and it actually not just my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, looking for that next quick fix to lose weight, to look better, to be slimmer, to be skinnier, and all the rest of it. I looked up everything. I tried every single fad diet, you name it, from South Beach to Atkins to Cambridge to soups, to one of my favorites, and this is not actually my favorite, but the 2 bowls of cereal a day diet, which I just can't believe they actually did a huge advertising campaign on that. I mean, basically,
I tried that.
Yeah, and it's sugar. You're putting a bowl full of sugar with 0 nutrients into your body, and you think you're going to look better for that? I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I tried them all, and you know, even down to slimming pills. I mean, everything. I tried it, and I tell you what, if it says fast, quick, you can do it like that, it does not work. It absolutely, categorically, and I will put my life on this to say, if you think there's a quick fix out there, you've got it wrong, because it isn't about a quick fix. Yes, you can lose weight. You just don't eat, but you're not going to be healthy. And as soon as you start eating again, you're going to put that weight on, and it's not a good. It's just absolutely not good for your body.
You know, that was something I wanted to ask you, is just about the impact, the negative impact of going through following all these fads. You know, the sugar one, as you mentioned now. I mean, the downside of being on a sugar diet, because that's effectively what you're on, or a 0-calorie diet, or any of those fast fixes, the damage that gets done short-term and long-term.
I mean, I think as much as anything, the mental damage that I went through, because it was a constant looking at my body and thinking I was fat, and being obsessed about chasing the next thing. And, you know, when it came to meal times, I couldn't eat like a normal person. So I would either avoid eating out and avoid those social occasions. And then I would grab sort of a chocolate bar just to get me through the day. And of course, when your blood sugar levels are that low, the thing that you crave is the instant thing that's going to take your blood sugar back up, which is a chocolate bar, some sort of sugary thing. And you think, well, I'll just eat one of these and then I won't eat again for 24 hours or whatever it is.
Wow.
What it does to your mind, your stress levels, your cortisol levels. If you've heard of cortisol, that's the fight and flight mechanism inside you. If you raise cortisol levels, it's not necessarily a good thing. All of these things are raising inside you. And particularly for a teenage girl, when you're going through so many changes in your body anyway,
yeah,
putting yourself through starvation diets, firstly, will affect your periods. Which is amazing. As soon as you see that go, you're on way too lower calories. You know, we're given this great, fantastic, beautiful biological clock for a reason. And that is, you know, it actually works. Trust in Mother Nature. It's fantastic. It's a great gift. But as soon as you start starving yourself, the organs will shut down. It will try and protect itself. And so it will starve the vital organs, because it needs that. It needs the energy. So you won't get that. That's one side that, you know, you won't get any periods. It can affect fertility. It can affect your stress levels, hormones, you know, not to mention the fact that in terms of your sociability, as I mentioned before, it all revolves around, well, I can't eat then. And then you're starting to make excuses to people.
Yeah.
You'll say, well, let's go out for dinner, and you're making an excuse. Oh, I can't make it then. Or actually, and before you know it, you realize you've dug yourself this hole, and you start lying. And, you know, and it can go a stage further. I mean, I got to a stage where if I ate, I was then finding the nearest toilet and putting my fingers down my throat. Now, I didn't get to the stage, I didn't get to the serious stage. I wasn't hospitalized or anything like that, but I did go through a phase of, well, I've just had a big meal. I can see this big meal in my stomach physically. Yeah. I want a flat stomach.
It's interesting because yesterday I posted on social media, and it was the first time I actually spoke about it, where as a teenager, I went through all of those things myself, but because of various other, you know, personal things going on in life with parents and family and things like that. And I was bulimic, but my family never knew about it. And I ended up being hospitalized and going through all kinds of tests and all those things. So this is one of the reasons why it's so important for me to share this message. Absolutely. Because the damage that it does is, you know, is far beyond what we realize at that point in time when we're going through these things and we're telling ourselves it's okay to go and throw up after a meal, you know, both mentally and physically. So,
and Matt, did it affect you as you got older with your confidence or anything?
It definitely did. I mean, I went through major changes, but it affected my ability to play sport because I was playing sports at a very competitive level. And it really just ruined a lot of opportunities because I got to a stage where I was training 5 days a week, but training 5 days a week and then ending up in hospital every other month because I wasn't giving the nutrition and all the right things to my body, ending up with ulcers and being on medication, missing tryouts for certain things. And you end up living with all these regrets because you've missed out on things and you didn't realize at the time what you were doing. So, sure.
I think it's one of those things, once you get into it, the spiral down is much easier than actually the spiral up. So what I would say to anybody that is on that sort of edge, or, you know, they're really, and I'm sure there's a lot of young people out there that are just like, well, I want to look good. And just this 1 week, I'm not going to eat anything. It'll be fine. As soon as you enter that 1 week, that one day, it slowly just eats away. And before you know it, you've done 2 weeks, you've done a month, and you've suddenly got this really, really nasty habit of making yourself ill through food. And it consumes you, it consumes your life. I've certainly seen other friends of mine that were consumed in terms of their confidence. And the only thing they could control, because this is actually about control in the end of the day.
Yeah.
The only thing they could control was what they put in their mouth. So everything else around them was crumbling. Yet the one thing they could hold on to was this, putting this thing in, you know, what they fed and put in their mouth. So all I would say is, it may start as, well, I just want to look fantastic and I want to have a flat stomach. But psychologically, it will turn and it will start eating you up inside, and it will affect all sorts of different levels.
I mean, you've clearly gone through the transformational mindset of facing all these things that so many people, not only teenagers, but adults as well, face. And you seem to have pretty good handle on it now. I mean, I've seen some of your posts where you just like, you know, this is how it is. And it's just like a matter of fact. And it's like, so you make it seem so simple now. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't know if simple is the right word. I would say I'm dedicated, and I'm still here today like I was as a teenager, wanting to look good. So I'm not saying for a minute that this isn't one of my values. One of my values absolutely is to look good. And that goes through anything in my life. And then I've got other values as well, but that is a particular value of mine. But what I know now about looking and feeling good intrinsically within me is certainly about what I put in my mouth. But it's not what I don't put in my mouth. It's the good stuff that I do put in my mouth. And as I say, that 40 point for me was a real turning point, because not only did I give, I sort of dropped this facade of being the successful career woman that I'd done for a good number of years. And I just thought, who is Sonya Morton Firth? You know, I like looking good. I had this ridiculous diet of hardly ever eating, and yet going out and drinking and this and that and all these habits that weren't fantastic. And I retrained. I trained as a personal trainer and looked into nutrition. And then the more and more I went, and the more I saw these women that were modeling our gym clothes, I thought, well, that's the figure that I want. I want to look fit and healthy. I don't want to look like a rake. I don't want to look emancipated. I want to look healthy, like I'm actually, you know, good, fit and healthy. And that is all about changing your lifestyle. It's not about a quick 2-week diet or get on this 6 weeks diet for your wedding or for that holiday. Bugger the holiday, bugger the wedding. I don't mean it literally. You want to look good for the rest of your life, right?
Absolutely.
Of course you want to get into that dress or that outfit, but how good would it be if you felt phenomenal most of the time? And I'm not going to say 100% of the time, because we're all human and we do all have our bad days, and we all have those days we wake up and go, oh my God, it's a bad hair day, or it's a bad this day or a bad that day. But if you can generally wake up with a positive attitude, feeling, looking, thinking, wow, I feel good, I look good, this is a lifestyle. And I can tell you, I will never change the way I eat now. You know, I have days, I don't ever not deny myself anything. So if I fancy a bit of chocolate, I'll eat it. But I stick to 80% of the time I'm eating nutritious, good food. I'm thinking about what I'm eating, and then I'll have a little indulgence now and again. So, you know, if I fancy that bit of chocolate, I'll have that bit of chocolate. But I don't sit there and eat bars and bars of chocolate all the time. You know, it's
an interesting point you make, because it is so often that it's an event or an occasion or a one-off thing that we're trying to look good for that one time. And that mindset of why not just be looking good most of the time? I mean, you know, 5 out of 7 days is not bad. 6 out of 7 days is phenomenal. But just to have yourself look good. And I know what it was like when I got married. It was like, okay, straight on the diet, go out to gym, work out, lost a lot of weight, looked great, had the wedding, and then and that's over? It's like, what's
weddings,
the point?
Holidays, some momentous occasion where everyone's like, wow. And you know, the marketing, the industry, you know, you see adverts, you hear them on the radio, you see them on billboard posters. Obviously, haven't been on the tube for a long time, but on the tubes, wherever. And it's advertising, you know, get slim for your holiday, get the perfect bikini body, get beach ready, get into your wedding dress. You know, we've been consumed. We are consumed by this society that chucks marketing messages at us every single day. And you know what? We are the fools. And I'm going to say that, we are the fools for believing it. And that's why I don't watch the TV anymore. I don't listen to mainstream media. And yeah, of course I do social media, but I don't, it's one of those things. Instagram, if you believe everything you see on Instagram, again, it's full of people that get photoshopped. You're not going to put a bad picture of yourself on Instagram. Let's face it. If you wake up feeling horrible, you got your hair all over the place, you're not going to reach the phone and do a selfie. It's not real life. People only show you the parts that they want you to see.
I think that's an interesting point, because I've had this discussion with so many people where on social media, people live the perfect life and you don't see what's going on in the background. And, I've even seen people that have recently gone through divorces, but a week and a half ago, they were having the most amazing family holiday. Everything was so amazing. And the family family portrait with everybody hugging and loving each other. In the meantime, the reality is, just to get that photo done was absolute mayhem, just to get everybody to actually stand together for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, we need to have that in the back of our mind, knowing that the reality is very often very different to what people put online.
Completely. And I think Instagram has just taken it to a different level. I mean, I didn't have Instagram in my day. It was magazines, it was TV ads, it was those sort of things. I mean, I was of the generation of the 6 foot skinny catwalk model, this emancipated look of a woman that was literally had nothing. And that's what I wanted to be like. I wanted to be flat and skinny and not have anything. And it was just the image that the media was portraying as what is beautiful. Now we see things are slightly different and what people perceive are beautiful. And Instagram, has almost taken that, exaggerated it, and then put it out there in a photo. These are not real people. They've been photoshopped. They've got a filter on. You don't see them walking down the street. Now, if you saw these people walking down the street, great. Then maybe, you'd be like, everybody in the street is absolutely stunning. They're all walking around with this amazing flawless skin, these great bodies. But do you really see that? I mean, we don't. Let's face it. You walk out onto the street, you see people, normal, everyday, real people. And they're different colors, different sizes, different ages, but all different. And that's what makes us unique.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes us beautiful. It's our uniqueness.
I was just going to say, the ability to appreciate the differences and the uniqueness that you have. I grew up with a mole on my nose, and I was so conscious of it as a teenager, thinking, everybody's looking at it, so that I was staring at it and staring down my nose half the time. But I realized that, that's the one thing that makes me different from everybody else. That's the part that makes me slightly unique, and that gives people the opportunity to recognize me. Because if I look like everybody else, then I wouldn't be me. So, you got to learn to love the little flaws and things that you have, because it makes you so unique.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what I would have loved somebody to have told me as a teenager, and if I look back, it's the one thing I would tell my young Sonya Morton Firth. I'd be like, learn to love yourself. Do not compare yourself to others. Love your uniqueness. Foster your uniqueness. Exaggerate your uniqueness, but know you and love you for you. And that is the good side, the bad side, every part of you, because we've all got different traits in us. Yeah. And every time we try and let go of a trait, it will come back. It will come back. If you think you're doing something in this particular way, the trait, you'll just find it coming back.
Whew. I mean, we've covered so much ground already, but I want to get into some of the questions and some of the statements, and some of the so first I'll go into some of the teenage questions and statements that I've been sent, and then into some of the parents and adult kind of statements and questions. Now, the first one I have here is from a teenage young lady who says, so she's written calorie consumption and calorie counting rather than intuitive eating. She says, do you think it's important for young people to learn about proper nutrition, and should this be a compulsory part of the school syllabus?
I absolutely believe that everyone should understand something about nutrition. Absolutely. Whether that should be part of the school syllabus, I think there's a lot that could be done with the school syllabus, to be honest. There's a lot of different things I'd like to put in there. In terms of nutrition, I think there's a couple of points, because the government put out guidelines that I don't necessarily agree with as well. And some of the things, you know, in the past, we were told fat was bad for you.
Yeah.
We were told eggs were bad for us. We were told you eat so many eggs, this is going to happen. You know, there are a lot of false things out there. We were told low fat was great, when actually good nutritious fats such as avocado, salmon, all of those things are full of nutrients and are very, very good for you. So I absolutely would say understand nutrition, understand the good fats from the bad fats and the carbohydrates. You know, people say, oh God, carbohydrates are so bad for you. Ooh. Well, that's a load of rubbish, because there are good carbs, there are bad carbs, but at the end of the day, you can't, you know, you've got to understand what a carbohydrate is and what it does to you to understand what's good and what's bad. And you know, the same with the proteins. Proteins are so fundamental for us.
So a simple thing just on that. And I'm not a 15-year-old girl, but if I were, and I needed to know what are good carbs, what are bad carbs, what is nutritional, what isn't, you know, what are good fats, what are bad fats, what's, you know, as you say, the government guidelines aren't necessarily the best. And if you look at marketing as a whole, you know, big, massive organizations are pushing certain belief systems down the line because they want to sell more product. It's not necessarily about the right advice. Where would you recommend they go to get the best advice?
I mean, without me sort of plugging anybody in particular, there are a couple of organizations that I look at. I look at Precise Nutrition, that's got some great work. And there are certain bodies that I know of through doing certain nutrition things that I would look at. I would not go and look at an Instagram model and listen to what they've said, and unless I know you know, they know their nutrition and they're focusing on that. But certainly in terms of just Googling what is good for you, that's going to be very, very difficult. The first thing I think you need to understand really is that you do need protein with absolutely everything, every meal. Do not skip on your protein. And that, you know, that protein looks like different things. It's eggs, it's in cheese, it's in obviously meats, fish. There's lots of different things that have protein in it, but I would say you should definitely be consuming protein with everything. Now, as a teenager, I didn't understand what protein was. In fact, I probably lived on carbs and bowls of cereal more than anything else, just because it was easy. And I thought, well, that was an easy way to get my fuel in. Actually, all of that is sugar. It is just mostly sugar. So I would say stay away from that, because all that's going to do is spike your insulin levels, and you're actually going to have a crash at some point and, you know, feel very fatigued. And teenagers probably do go through this. You have massive rushes of energy, and then you feel that drop, that slump. It's, you know, all these sugary drinks, bowls of cereal, that'll help, that'll make it even worse. So really keeping your protein levels high and getting some good quality carbs, starchy carbs, oats, starchy potatoes, sweet potatoes, vegetables. All green vegetables are fantastic. And I've probably got teenagers going, who is she? She's talking about green vegetables. Oh my God, we don't want to eat our greens. I love my greens now. I love sprouts. I mean, I literally, I don't know what it is, but all those days around Christmas dinner where I was like, no sprouts for me. Now I'm like, give me more sprouts. When you realize how nutritious green vegetables are for you, yeah, you just...
And just a question on proteins, because I know there's a massive shift when you go online with regards to vegan diets. And, what would typical proteins be around, for vegan, as an example, if you're looking at fruits and vegetables?
Yeah, so tofu is a very good vegan product. I mean, I'm not vegan myself. I think it is quite difficult. You can get a lot of pea substitute protein as well. But again, vegan, you don't eat cheese, but it tends to be tofu, pea related proteins, pulses, beans. All of those are obviously, they're vegan, but they're full of protein. Beans have got a lot of protein in them.
Okay. So the next statement that she wrote was, how can we encourage people to exercise and keep fit and healthy? And this includes simply going on short daily walks, how to get people moving without putting on the emphasis on losing weight.
Well, exercise shouldn't just be about losing weight for a start, because I mean, I don't think I need to lose weight and I exercise every day. And that's simply because it makes me feel better. It makes my mind, it makes me be able to concentrate on work. I can deal with stress in a lot more effective, in a much more effective way. It makes me feel more confident. I mean, I lift weights, and as a woman as well, I just feel like it just boosts my confidence. It boosts my determination. It makes me feel strong, obviously not just physically strong, but mentally strong. I'd say actually exercise, certainly for me, is much more about what it does for me mentally than what it necessarily does for me physically. So if you're looking at exercise, you should be thinking about, how does this make me feel? And actually, it's a very important point, because exercise, like diet, but particularly exercise, you shouldn't, there isn't a one size fits all. And you should really be looking at an exercise or something you enjoy doing. Because if you don't enjoy doing it, it doesn't matter how many times you tell yourself, you're going to do it, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. Let's face it, it'll last 2 weeks, then you won't do it. So the best thing is to find something that you're having fun. Maybe it's a team activity. Maybe it's something you can do with your friends. Or maybe it's something that you actually enjoy doing on your own. And again, back to being unique, Some of us are team players. Some of us just like doing things solo. Yeah. And really, it's whatever you enjoy doing. And really, don't be pressured because your friend likes doing this or another friend likes doing that, or because Instagram's models say you should be doing this. Find out what you enjoy doing, because you are much more likely to stick to that.
Yeah.
And it is all about consistency here. It's about doing something you enjoy, something that you consistently do, and something that you don't dread. And it's not about losing weight. It's about feeling good about yourself, thinking, wow, I love doing that. It's a challenge. It's an experience. It's getting my mindset in the right mental attitude to set you up for the day.
I think that's really important to understand, because it's so easy to think I need to go and almost beat myself up. So that I've got to, if I don't do this, I'm not going to look good, and I'm not going to feel good, and I'm going to put on weight and have exercise associated with weight loss as opposed to a way of living and healthy mindset and body.
And that's another thing. I think I lost, certainly, again, sort of turning 40. When I was working in the city, I had that sort of competitive, I must be dying by the end of this exercise regime. I need to be beaten to a pulp. I need to be dripping with sweat. I need to be puking in a bucket. I need to be literally pumped full of life afterwards. I need to feel like I've done something. And you see a lot of adrenaline junkies out there that, they're CrossFitters, they're this, that, the other, you know, they're doing hits this high intensity interval training. You know, they want to feel like they've been beasted. Well, you know what, that's all good. If that's what you want to do, fine. I don't particularly think that's the optimal way for exercising, and it's not necessarily very good for you either. You can just go for a beautiful walk and be exhilarated by that. You do not have to be dripping with sweat. I mean, I literally have come from the gym and I do not drip with sweat. I do not. It's not that
You've already been to the gym?
I've been to the gym this morning, yes.
You look like you're going to the gym.
Oh, no, I've been to the gym, but yes, and it's, you know, I don't drip with sweat, you know, it's not, I don't feel like I'm going to be sick at the end of every workout. I feel like I've exerted myself and worked hard, but you certainly don't need to be throwing up in a bucket, dripping with sweat, you know, or any of those things to exercise.
Wow. So the next one is, she says, is it possible to ruin your metabolism in your teenage years due to an eating disorder? And do our bodies change until we're adults? Example, where we store fat and metabolism. What are the non-harmful ways to increase the rate of metabolism?
I was reading this actually quite recently in terms of metabolism, and firstly, you can't ruin your metabolism as such, and if you have an eating disorder, absolutely, and obviously you're going through that period of time, your metabolism will eventually, when you get back, it'll go back to normal. We have, our bodies are fantastic things, and they will heal themselves. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you should put your body through that just to prove it, because it's not a great thing when you're going through it. But you know, your metabolism, your body does, you know, if you've done something awful now, but you get back on the right track and you're really good with your eating and you become healthy, you can absolutely reverse those you know, get back to normal and you know, and not have any sort of really long-term damage. So, and I know that because when I was going through competition prep as well, you do go through quite a particular time, which is called competition prep, where you're pretty much putting your body in starvation. Now, depending on the coach that you have, I had some very good coaches and they never let me go into starvation mode, but you are losing body fat. And obviously this is for a competition. You don't get up on stage every day and do that. And I would not advise this as a way of life at all. And it's certainly something that as a female, we should not have that low percentage body fat. And, you know, going back to our reproductive organs, to our biology, we need to have a certain percentage of fat levels. And whenever I say fat levels, people think of, oh my God, this fat person. We all have fat, you know, we all have fatness, and fat is actually a good thing. You know, it's not a bad thing. We keep, you know, we hear this thing, this word fat, and we just associate all these horrible things with it, but there are good fats as well. And, you know, fat can be a very good thing for our bodies as well, especially in terms of being a female. I'm going to use that of your biology and your reproductive organs.
And, you know, that's interesting because I think you gave us a fairly straight answer there. And, you know, she finishes off with, I wonder about this because Google doesn't give you any straight answers.
Yeah, so metabolic damage apparently does not, there isn't no such thing as metabolic damage as such.
Awesome. So another question before we go into some parents' questions and wrap up is, how do I regain a healthy relationship with exercising after being sporty before developing an eating disorder, but now wanting to fall back into with not wanting to fall back into excessive exercise?
Right. Yeah, no, I understand. So I'm guessing this person, I don't know, was quite obsessed with exercise as part of a way of losing weight. So I think this is very much about your mindset and looking at it in a different way. So it's having firstly a healthy mental, a healthy relationship with food, with your body, and with exercise, and looking at exercise rather than a way of losing weight like we talked about before, but rather as a way of feeling good, to get that great feeling that exercise can give you, get the endorphins that exercise give you, get the blood going, get that mental well-being feeling, rather than think about it as losing weight. So the type of exercise probably is quite important here. So I would say to that person, and obviously I don't know and I'd need to know more, but I would say you probably don't want to be doing HIIT training or some sort of really grindy to the ground training. You want to do something that's a lot more calming, meditative almost, something that you really can enhance more of your mental well-being than you literally sweating buckets thinking about how many calories that you're losing every time you exercise.
So what type of exercises would be, I'm just trying to think, calming?
Well, I mean, I walk every day. I love walking. I love walking in nature. I'm very fortunate to live in a beautiful part of London where there's there's Richmond Park here. I walk along the river. I'd say walking is one of the, I mean, we can all walk, right? Well, most of us, you know, we should be lucky for all of these things, but getting outside, getting out into nature is beautiful. Walking, cycling, you know, cycling, all of these things don't have to cost a lot of money. If this person enjoys yoga, I would absolutely recommend yoga as well. Now, yoga, again, when people say to me, I want to lose weight, shall I do yoga? I'm like, well, no, not if it's not a way of burning. That's not how you should look at yoga. Yoga is about your mind. It is actually about time for you on your mat. But it is a way of using your body and moving yourself and movement. And you know, exercise is, in the end of the day, about moving your body. And so walking, cycling, yoga, enjoying a class. Maybe there's a class that this person likes, you know. I mean, it really depends on the person. I mean, rowing. I mean, I'm looking outside the river, people are rowing, you know. There's all sorts of different types of exercise. You don't necessarily need to be in a gym. Now, I enjoy lifting weights. Doesn't necessarily mean that another person does.
You've answered that question in a lot of detail. So you've given a sort of a good few options there. So her next statement is, if BMI isn't an accurate measurement for a healthy weight, what can you use to determine your healthy weight?
So that's actually a very good question, because BMI is not necessarily, you know, there are people that have got high BMI that they're told they're obese, and they could sit next to you and they would look amazing. We're all, again, it comes down to uniqueness. We're all different. We're all way slightly different. Our height, weight, bone structure, all of that has a lot to play with BMI. In terms of measuring your own weight, it's about comparing yourself to you and not comparing yourself to somebody else. So for example, I know days where I feel like let's say I'd eaten a big meal the night before, a huge meal, and I didn't overindulge, maybe it was Christmas or whatever. And you know, you feel like you know that full tummy feeling. You can easily tell, well, that's how I felt then, and how do I feel on a normal day? Well, I've had a good day before, the week, the run-up before, I've been eating healthily, how do I feel now? Now, you can use scales if you're going to do this. If you are going to use scales, you have to be consistent and weigh yourself at the same time. Now, so what I would do if you're doing this just to see in the long term what your weight should be, you measure yourself for at least a week, maybe at the same time every morning without any clothes, before you've had anything to eat or drink. So basically get up in the morning, go to the toilet, no clothes on, weigh yourself. And if you do that, make a note of it every single day for 2 weeks, you'll see your fluctuation. And you take an average of that, and that is pretty much your body weight as you are then. And then you can tell from there whether you go up or down, but I would definitely not say you should be weighing yourself every day normally.
Okay, Very, very good, good point. Because,
Best test, to be honest, the best test is how you feel in your clothes.
Mm.
So you know when your waistband feels a bit, tight. Your clothes tell you. You tell you. Look at yourself naked. I mean, that's the best thing to say. Do not look at yourself against anybody else, because we are all different. We're all different shapes and sizes. So, your friend or somebody on social media might look great in that dress. You know what? You look better in a different dress. We're all different shapes.
I think that's a really good point, because as a man, as an example, we'll look at other men and go, oh, look, he's got an 8-pack or a 6-pack, and I must try and do that. But when you feel comfortable with yourself and just realize that you want to make yourself look the best you can be, it's a totally different mindset to me trying to morph into something else that I'll never potentially be, which means I'm always going to be unhappy.
Exactly. And you're setting yourself up for failure before you start. If you've got this ideal that you will never get to because of some social idealism,
yeah,
then you're already setting yourself up to fail. The best advice I would give you is, find what you do great. What is your gift? Because we all have our own gifts.
yeah.
And we all have something inside us that is unique, and take that uniqueness and shout about that. Don't look at somebody else's uniqueness.
I think that is a very powerful thing if you can get to that stage. So she finishes off and she says, is it okay to exercise in recovery if it's not for the purpose of losing weight?
When she says
from an eating disorder.
So if she's had an eating disorder and she is now in recovery, I mean, because I'm not a doctor, I would hate to say yes. I wouldn't like to say yes or no. I think it would depend on the stage of recovery. I mean, if you've just left the hospital bed, I would probably say it's not the greatest idea to go and put a sweat on. Absolutely not. Gentle walking around. I really don't know the stage of your recovery, yeah. But I would say certainly any form of gentle exercise in recovery I would say could only be a good thing.
Excellent. So, conscious of time, we've taken up a lot of your time and you've given us some major value. We have a few parents' questions. Is it okay to go into those?
Absolutely, Matt. Okay. I'm loving this. And you know what? If I'd heard somebody speak about this, I think when I was a teenager, because you hear it from your mum and it's always, and your dad, and it's different because you never believe your parents. Let's face it. You're like, yeah, right. Yeah. I don't believe it. I'm going to listen to this other person that must be more qualified than you.
So it's, yeah. I mean, just what you say there by not listening to your parents. I mean, how, if you were a parent of you mentioned you went through this as a teenager as an example, and you understand the mindset. What do you think would be the best way that if somebody approached you as a teenager in order to kind of support you with the right eating habits, rather than, and I know this because I've got 2 girls and I know it's going to be challenging times as they grow up because their bodies are going through all these changes, and I don't want to be sitting there going, you shouldn't be doing this, shouldn't be doing that.
Because part of being a teenager, I think, is wanting to rebel anyway. And obviously it depends on the teenager. You can have some teenagers that conform and other teenagers that just want to rebel against whatever their parents say. So as soon as you say do something, they will deliberately do the opposite. Yeah. And unfortunately, that is just the way of the world. As a parent, and I'm not a parent, so I'm just going to say that, but I was a teenage girl. And I think finding out from your daughters what it is they're really looking for, what it is that they want to achieve. They're looking at these models, they're looking at these pictures. What is it about that they like and find beautiful? And do they really understand that these are not real people? And if they are real people, how many people do they know that actually look like that in the street? Because when you boil it down to, well, actually, if you take 10 people in the street of an average day, do you see anyone that looks like that in those Instagram photos? Probably not, because they do not exist. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist, but there's a filter on them. there's a Photoshop, you know, they've got their body at a certain angle, and, you know, we can all make ourselves look as great as we want to and take that picture, that moment in time. So I think almost taking down that person from a pedestal, because in the end of the day, anything we infatuate with, anything that we put on a pedestal has to come down. And you've got to get it back into balance. What is it about this person? Let's take that person down off a pedestal, this icon down from the pedestal. And once you've done that, I really look at the teenage, because obviously they're going to then say, well, my friends do this, I want to look like that. And it's like, it's okay, well, you do look beautiful. I would absolutely always tell your children, and I'm sure they are beautiful, how beautiful they are. And you know, listen to them, and maybe they do have complexes about a certain area. I try it's very easy to give a teenager a complex at this age, because anything you say, they can latch onto, and they can take that with them through life. I remember my mum saying a couple of things, and I've never forgotten to this day, and she'd be mortified if she knew that. But we tend to latch onto things in the teenage years and form big complexes. So just be wary about that, about saying anything that's likely to form a complex. I would say take the person down from the pedestal that they idolize, because we shouldn't be idolizing anyone, and actually big your child up and say, look, you can just be as good as that person. You're just as beautiful as that person.
So I think some of the questions are actually going to hammer into or direct into a lot of the things you just mentioned now. Because one of the questions a parent asked was, what advice would you give parents who see their child struggling with an eating disorder, because it must be heartbreaking for them, and how can they support their child best?
I think it's very, because you can't support a 0-calorie diet, or if you see your child doing damage, you can't say, oh my God, yeah, carry on doing that, we won't feed you. But again,
it's cheaper.
Just don't eat it. Cheaper for us. Yeah, don't do it. But I think it's talking through, well, why are you doing what do you think that will sort of achieve? And it's like, do you really think that you'll look better by having nothing to eat? And maybe sort of turning it around and saying, actually, if you don't eat, you could lose, you know, your hair, your skin won't look as good, but not in a scary way, just in a very factual way. Actually, you know, food has a very good nutritional content, and it makes our eyes sparkle, it makes our hair grow, you know, all those things that teenagers maybe want, you know, it will make your body full of whatever it is. Actually, you need that from the nutrients you put into your body. And if you don't put those things in, you're just, it's just not going to go anywhere. But I think, you know, I think it all boils down to, why are they idolizing this person that they see?
And it's interesting because you mentioned earlier about, you know, the impact parents or other people can have on teenagers, and you know, just by certain things that are said. And I think this is more of a statement, but it's a parent who's written, it's utterly soul destroying for an individual or the parents and the rest of the family. His daughter suffered from bulimia as a consequence of 2 of her friends calling her a hamster as she had chubby cheeks. And she had it under control for a moment, or has it under control now, and she's happily married with 2 gorgeous children. But the pain and suffering was almost too much to bear, and the mental health issues that went along with it. And they were saying that, you know, some of the organizations who are supposed to support mental health and these things were woefully understaffed and underfunded. You know, I guess from that perspective, are there, you know, any organizations or places that you could recommend if somebody wanted to even reach out to you or somebody else, that we could put into the comments of this video that we could share at a later stage?
I mean, I have, I mean, there are links to sort of mental health things that I can look up, Matt, and definitely, because I've actually done a mental health course as well. So if you've got teenagers that are particularly depressed, and if you're fearful for what they may do, absolutely, there are lines that you can talk to professionals. I think it's very important to understand at what stage your teenager's at, and actually to go for professional advice quite quickly, because mental health, and you know, again, it's very topical. People are talking a lot about mental health, and especially, you know, in COVID, it's exacerbated the problem. People are alone. People are more likely to look at their social media than actually go out and talk to anybody. And what I would say is it's important to talk. Just to talk and air your feelings, because loneliness is a killer. And if a teenager feels lonely and they're in their bedroom, they're looking at their social media, that's all they see, that's an incredibly lonely, and it could be quite painful life if you're going through those changes and, you know, wanting to look good or whatever, however it facilitates itself. It's something that if there are symptoms there, then you need to do something quite quickly about it. That's what I would say.
Okay. And you know, I'll chat to you offline with regards to any resources that we can direct people into, and we'll put those into the comments and into the descriptions of the videos as well. So the next one, they say social media often gives the impression that creating perfect meals and meal prepping can almost be effortless. I've found this not to be the case. What is your advice there?
I mean, I guess it's my way of life, so I find it quite easy now. What I used to find difficult is going out for a meal. Obviously, I haven't had to do that for a long time because of COVID, but when I was out and about in the city, I would find it quite difficult in restaurants, and going out just generally to necessarily always find the healthiest of meals. I think that's changed a lot in the last few years, where there's always much healthier options, more protein-based options, and there's always something out there that you can get. In terms of meal prep, it doesn't have to be difficult. You make what it is about preparation. It's a sort of knowing, well, what is it? What are those things that are easy, quick fixes when you're hungry, that are not going to raise your blood sugar level. So, you know, there are a couple of examples I use. I mean, I have oats and fruit with some protein in it and mix all of that together. I have eggs, a lot of eggs, and I always have eggs with spinach or some sort of green vegetable, and that will just keep you full for a lot longer, you know, than having a bowl of cereal in the morning. You know, have 3 eggs and a big bag of spinach. Fantastic. And that's really easy. You know, you just chuck the eggs in the pan, you know, and put the veg in, and it's all done.
Okay. I think it's as complicated as I guess we want to make it.
It is. And if you want to make a nice, tasty meal, of course, the part of the pleasure is cooking and putting the nice ingredients in. If you just want something to fill you up, then it is quite easy just to get some protein, some veg, and put them together.
Excellent. So the next one is, how do we focus on trying to be fit as we can, as every image around us seems to be telling us that we're already doomed for failure?
Wow, that's quite dark, isn't it?
That is.
Around us,
I guess if you're looking at social media, things like you mentioned Instagram, where it's like we're trying to be fit, but I guess if we're comparing to those images, it's like
comparison. Why would you compare yourself to anybody, right? It's a bit like you are the giant, you are great, you are the person you should be. We all have uniqueness, and it's really, again, it's about self-love, and it all boils down to self-love. Love yourself, love your uniqueness, celebrate your greatness. Do not compare yourself to anybody. You don't need to be anybody else. You just need to be the best version of yourself.
And the thing is, that sounds so simple, and it is, yet we overcomplicate things because we always try and compare. And
it's part of human, who we are as humans, our competitive nature. And it's obviously, it's exacerbated by social media, by the media, by TV, by everything else. You know, we're always told about this person, that person that's doing this, that, oh, we want to be that person, we don't want to be that person. And it's really looking and saying, going, well, yeah, that person's fantastic. They're doing amazingly well. But what am I good at? There is something that's in me that I can do well, and I can be fantastic. And you know what? It might not be the same as that person, but it'll be this, and I'll be just as good as that. And you know, there are a lot of people that it could be just as much as being a fantastic mum or a fantastic dad. Or, you know, as a teenage player, maybe they're great at their video games. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's whatever that person's good at, and we're all good at different things. And, you know, it shouldn't be about looking at this person on social media and thinking, I want to be like that.
Yeah, you know, just feeling okay with self is clearly a massive, you know, if you can get that right.
And it's taken what, you know, I'm sitting here 49th year, coming up to 15. It's taken a long time for me to get to this stage, and it is a learning process, and there are ups and downs, and everyone is human. So I think, you know, we all go through good days and bad days, and it is natural to compare yourself. And people that say, oh, you shouldn't compare, which I've just done. Well, of course I compare. You do. It's natural to. It's how far you take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, you know, you're going to do it. Realize you're doing it. Catch yourself when you're doing it. And I do that sometimes when I'm on my phone. And I'm like, wow, Sonya, what have you just done? Why are you doing that? You know, just sort of take yourself out of the situation. Know you're doing it. Recognize you're doing it, and then
just be conscious of it.
Yeah, be conscious of it. Absolutely.
So I've got two more questions, and then I think we'll wrap up. These are fairly simple, I think, but the one is, you know, there's crazy amounts of carbs that people are eating at the moment, and why is it that healthy food is expensive and junk food is so cheap?
It depends on the healthy food, and actually, healthy food is cheap. Eggs are cheap. Eggs are probably the cheapest thing you can get. Bag of spinach, very cheap. So, you know, if you're, and you know what, all of this health food that you think is expensive, we don't need to be eating that. All these juju berries, this berry, that big ginseng. You know what? That's, again, it's marketing gimmicks, right? It is marketing gimmicks. It's back to this plain old simple whole foods. This is one rule I say: whole foods. Nothing processed. Very simple. Eggs, vegetables, proteins. Can be very simple, and it's not expensive. We've made this health industry expensive. Of course we have. It's a marketing gimmick.
I'm just sitting here giggling to myself because, you know, when you said that the spinach as an example is cheap, and I'm like, well, how much is spinach? And I'm like, a can of Pringles is more expensive than a packet of spinach.
Yeah.
Like a big packet of spinach. And I'm like, so really it's more of us kind of telling ourselves what, you know, like you say about those berries and the marketing things that say we have to go and have all these.
You can't pronounce half of them. Berries, this berries, and, you know, this thing, and it's all going to be fantastic.
Oh, dear.
You're going to wake up with this libido, that, this, the other. And it's like, well, yeah, if you've got all that money to throw away, when actually you could just go down to your local supermarket, buy some blueberries, some spinach, some eggs, you know, a nice piece of chicken or some fish, or, you know, and actually it's not expensive.
The fish and chip takeaway is a lot more expensive.
Exactly.
Oh dear. So somebody has asked about intolerances. So they've had an intolerance test. They're finding they're intolerant to almost everything. How do you fit that into, if into your program, as an example, if you had?
I'm very wary of intolerance tests. I mean, I thought I was intolerant to gluten and dairy. Those are the very common ones. Obviously, there are serious intolerance if people are allergic and will die. That's not something I'm talking about. I'm talking about the thing that's become quite sort of fashionable to say everything, you're intolerant to everything. I'm not sure. Your body can become a little bit intolerant, but you should always introduce that food unless you're allergic. So please, if you've been told you're allergic to peanuts, don't go and eat peanuts. But I was told I was allergic to gluten a few years ago and dairy, and I eat gluten and dairy now, and I'm fine. It's just we are told it's like anything, it's a new fad. You're intolerant about something. Are you really intolerant or not? I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't know what the tests were done, what tests were done.
Yeah, but I think you've got a good point there, just with regards to the introducing it slowly and
yeah, exactly.
I think we all have a intolerance to overindulging.
Exactly.
Which I always say, I'm allergic to sugar and crisps, which make me swell up. So
great thing. People are convinced, it's an intolerance, it must be, and it's like, no, you're just eating the wrong food.
So the last one is actually just around drinking water, everyday water, and he says, should water be chilled, kept at room temperature? Should it be warmed up? And, for purpose of cleansing and detoxing, should we be squeezing lemon into it, lime juice, dropping cucumber? Like, what do you recommend?
Water is absolutely amazing. It was a game changer for me. I personally say room temperature. That's how I prefer to drink it. People think I'm mad and they have loads of ice in it. I don't think it's your temperature within your body is not ice cold. So putting that in, it's just, I think, easier on the system to have it at room temperature. I think the most important thing with water, put lemon in it, put cucumber in it, whatever makes you drink it, do it. Don't put sugar in it. Don't put sugar in it. But, by squeezing lemon in it, by putting some cucumber, if that's going to make you drink more of it, absolutely. Is it any better for you? No. Water is water, and water is phenomenal for you. You should be drinking at least 2 to 3 liters a day. And it was a game changer for me because I didn't used to drink enough water. And it really does make you feel, it makes you feel like you're more energetic. When we yawn, it's not because we're tired. It's usually because we're dehydrated. A lot of the time it's because we're dehydrated, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've just learned something new.
Dehydrated or hungry, or we're trying to get oxygen into the body. But it's, you try drinking water if you start yawning a lot. So,
Sonya, we've covered so much ground today, and you've been very honest with your feedback, and I thank you for your transparency. I'm sure just out of this, there'll be a load more questions from people. What would you suggest is the best way for people to reach out to you and connect with you? Are there any other programs that they can kind of find out more information? So
my website is my name, Sonya, SonyaMortonFirth.com, basically SonyaMortonFirth.com. Obviously, you've got my YouTube channel, which is the Sonya Morton Firth Show. There are inquiry forms on my website, and I can give you a link, Mac, as well. So an info if anyone's got sort of a particular question they want to ask me, absolutely happy to respond as well.
Marvelous. Thank you, Sonya. Thank you so much for answering some very direct questions, from both parents and teenagers, as well as myself. And, I urge everybody to really listen to the messages that Sonya has put across, because even though a lot of them will seem like they're logical and seem like they're simple, it's applying those things. it's taking action on those. And for those parents out there, you know, listening to your teenagers and understanding why they want to achieve, you know, that's one of the big things I got out of today, is really understanding why and what it is they're wanting to achieve, so that you have a clearer understanding of how you can support them through that process. Just a massive, massive thank you for all the information you've shared with us today. And I really look forward to seeing where this goes.
Matt, it's brought out a passion of mine. As I say, I've always been passionate about it. I could talk about this subject forever. And there is so much over the years that I've learned. And I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal, because as I say, if parents and teenagers that are watching this, that are going through difficult times, and if they just have one thing that they can take away, then it's amazing. Because as I say, I certainly had nothing like this when I was a teenager, and it is a very, very difficult time for teenagers, especially now, especially with COVID, with the way our society's going, with the pressures of social media. So yeah, I think it's very valuable.
Excellent. And anybody watching this, I urge you, please, if you found value in this, go and share this video with somebody. You don't know what a massive difference I think this can make in somebody's life who is potentially lost, just trying to find answers on places like Google and YouTube and everywhere else. You know, go and share this and give them the opportunity to get some direct, straight answers from somebody who is ultra fit at almost 50. So
yeah, and well, just think of that. It's like, it might not be what you do today, but think of tomorrow and the next day. And I've got to say, life is for living. And if I was at that teenage you and I was all doom and gloom and could think, wow, my older self will tell me, you've got it all to come. Just look after yourself, look after your body, practice and exercise this, your mind. Everything else will fall into place.
Indeed. Sonya, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.